city council meeting to order. If I could have roll call, please.
Dingfelder. Here. Goods. Here. Maniscalco.
Here.
Citro. Here. Miranda. Here. Carlson. Here. And Vieira.
All right. We'll start with our public hearings. We can start with item number 1.
Second.
Motion to open from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Good afternoon, City Council members. David Hay with your Planning Commission staff. Items 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all related. They're 1907 A through D. You saw these at the September 29th transmittal hearing. They're back from the state. There was no concerns from the state. It's the pleasure of council. I can go through them, or you've got all your staff reports, and we're available if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions from council or any objection to taking all 4 items?
Can we just make a motion to approve?
Marty, can we make a single motion to approve each?
No, my suggestion is, unless you have specific questions on specific items, just take each one of them individually, ask if there's public hearing, close it, and then read the ordinance. And then do it as you normally would for first reading.
Just a suggestion, Mr. Chair. David, just so anybody who's watching, why don't you just like give an overview on all 4 of them, just to say this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, like in 30 seconds.
Sure, we'll be very brief. The first, let me go through. The first one is Corona Park. That's Site A. This is down in the South Tampa Planning District. Currently, the site has 2 designations. The majority of the site is residential 10. It has a small portion of community mixed use 35. It is going to that recreation open space, future land use category. Again, Planning Commission is recommending approval, and the state had no objections or concerns.
So the back in the day, the city designated it a park, but nobody bothered to get the land use to match that designation?
I would put it as the land use did not follow the designation from the city. And this would properly recognize the recreation use.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions from council?
Yeah, thank you. The bottom line is that it's, by changing this, is helping to protect the parks, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Hay, this is going to make it so nothing can be built on these properties unless it is associated with the park, such as a rec center or something like that, correct?
Well, how the rec open space future land use category is described is that it is a category appropriate for public or private recreation facilities only. So,
answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No? All right. We have a motion. Wait, is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on item number 1?
Move to close.
We have a motion to close for Councilman Dingfelder, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor? All right, Councilman Dingfelder, if you don't mind taking item number 1.
Sure. Okay, I'll move an ordinance presented for first reading. An ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan, future land use element, future land use map for the property located at 3702 West Corona Street, otherwise known as Corona Park, from community mixed use 35, CMU 35, and residential 10 R10 to recreation open space R/OS, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder, second from Councilman Miranda. Do we record our vote? Or no.
First reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
And if we could announce the date, please. If you have that up.
Passed unanimously, Vieira being absent. Second reading and adoption will be on February 20th at 9:30 a.m.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 2.
Item number 2, 1907, it's a portion, 1907B, it's a portion of Highland Pines Park. Currently, the western edge of the park is designated as light industrial. The remaining portion of the park is already the rec open space. This would amend and have the entire park under that rec open space. Again, the Planning Commission found it consistent, and the state had no objections or concerns.
All right, do we have any questions from council members? No? All right. Do we have any questions from, or anybody in the public wish to speak on item number 2? We have a motion and question from Councilman Miranda with a second from
Second.
Councilman Goots. All in favor?
Aye.
All righty, Councilman Goots, number 2.
File PA 19-07B, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan, future land use element, future land use map for the property generally located at 4505 East 21st Avenue, otherwise known as Holland Pines Park, from light industrial LI to recreation open space R-06, providing for repeal of all ordinance in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a second, we have a motion from Councilman Goods, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I've been informed by the clerk. Sir, would you please sue?
Yes, our internet has gone out. If we could recess for 5 minutes to try and get this resolved. On that vote, it was unanimous. Dingfelder being absent at vote, Vieira being absent. Second reading and adoption will be on February 20th at 9:30 a.m.
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess because the internet's down. We paid the bill.
Unplug and plug back in.
Gentlemen, are we in recess?
designation, there's no
Tampa City Council is back in session. Roll call, please.
Dingfelder. Here. Goods. Maniscalco. Citro.
Present.
Miranda. Carlson. And Vieira.
Back to number 3. David Hay again, your Planning Commission staff. The next item is 1907C. It's Lincoln Gardens Park. Currently, the site is that residential 10 future land use category. This is the regional mixed use 100. This amendment would designate it that recreation open space. Again, Planning Commission recommended approval, and there were no issues from the state.
All right, any questions from board members? No. Anybody in the public wish to speak on item number 3? We have a motion to close from Councilman Miranda with the second from Councilman Boots. All in favor?
All right.
Councilmember Citro.
This is number 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. File number PA 19-07C, an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan, future land use element, future land use map for the property generally located at 2007 West Palmetto Street and otherwise known as Lincoln Gardens Park, from residential 10, R10, to recreation open space, ROS, providing for repeal of all ordinance in conflict, providing severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilman Citro with a second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carried with Vieira being absent. Second reading and adoption will be on February 20th at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much. Item number 4.
Number 4, next one is 1907D. It's Oak Park. It's in the Central Tampa Planning District, more specifically the East Side Commercial Neighborhood. Currently, this is the park. It is that residential 20, similar to all the properties around it in that brown color. This would bring it to the rec open space future land use category. Again, Planning Commission is recommending approval, and the state had no objections.
Any comments or questions from council members? Seeing none, anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 4?
Mr. Cole and Miss Alley, this is your time. Do you all want to speak? Okay.
No public comment from the kids in the back. Who moved to close?
Second.
Motion closed from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Councilman Miranda, if you would take him.
Chairman, move file number 4, PA 19-07D. Move an ordinance being presented for first reading on ordinance amending the Image 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan future land use element, future land use map for the property generally located at 5215 East 15th Avenue, and likewise known as Oak Park, from residential 20R20 to recreation open space ROS, providing for repeal of all ordinance in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Do we have a second? We have a motion for Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Carlson. All in favor?
The motion carried with Vieira being absent. Second reading and adoption will be on February 20th at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much. Item number 5. Yes, Councilman Carlson.
Mr. Hay, David, can I ask you a quick question? I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but who found these four? I would like to thank whoever found these four parks that had the wrong designation.
Oh, there's more coming too, so don't worry about it.
But just
Again, remember, it was the previous council that recognized that our future land use map didn't match up to the dedicated
so
park
the council
list.
found it.
Council moved this and directed staff to start working
Yeah,
on it.
whoever found it, thank you. If some staff person found it for a council member, thank you. These are kinds of things that we need to find
There'll
so
be
that we protect the
lots
public.
more in the coming rounds.
I believe it was Councilmember Mike Suarez. I think it was.
Thank you, Councilman Suarez.
Number 5.
Good evening. This is Danny Collins with the Planning Commission staff. This is Tampa Plan Amendment 1908 for the University of South Florida Research Foundation. The request is to change the future land use from SMU 6 to public semi-public on 84.12 acres. If you recall, you heard this case in September 2019 and approved the request for transmittal to the state. We received feedback from the state and there was no objection or comments. We are bringing this case back before you tonight for an adoption. I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions from council members? Councilmember Booth? Oh, no? Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody in the public wish to speak on item number 5?
Move to close.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Miranda with a second from Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson, if you wouldn't mind taking number 5.
Sure. File number PA 1908. Ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. Ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan future land use element, future land use map for the property located at 3802 Spectrum Boulevard from suburban mixed use 6 SMU-6 to public semi-public P/SP, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Carlson with a second from Councilman Sidro. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carried with Vieira being absent. Second reading and adoption will be on February 20th at 9:30 a.m.
All right. Item number 6.
Danny Collins again with your Planning Commission staff. This is Tampa Plan Amendment 1915. This case is in Central Tampa Planning District. It's in the historic Ybor neighborhood, and it's also in the Ybor City Urban Village. This is an aerial of the subject site. Subject site is here on East 3rd Avenue. This is North 19th Street. This is Philip Shores School just to the east of the site. And then 2 blocks south is Adamo Drive. This is a close-up aerial of the subject site. Again, you'll see some light industrial, commercial uses just to the east and south of the site, and then you'll start seeing some residential just north of the site. This is looking at the subject site from East 3rd Avenue. This is looking at the adjacent property to the east of the subject site. This is looking east on East 3rd Avenue. The subject site would be on our left-hand side. This is looking west on East 3rd Avenue. The subject site would be on our right. This is looking directly south from south of the subject site on East 3rd Avenue. The subject site would be behind us. Quick background of the request. This is privately initiated. This is a small-scale amendment. It's just under a quarter acre. The request is to change the future land use from the general mixed-use 24 future land use category to the urban mixed-use 60 category. This is the adopted future land use map. You'll see the site is here. It's outlined in this outlined in black. It's within that GMU 24 future land use category. Just to the north and to the couple blocks to the east, you'll see CMU 35. This red is CC 35. To the south is urban mixed use 60. And then further south is you'll see some light industrial and then some heavy industrial denoted in the gray color on Adamo Drive. This is the proposed future land use map. This is just a slide showing the potential impacts. Currently, the site can be considered for 5 residential dwelling units or just over 15,000 square feet of non-residential development. Overall, the proposed amendment would allow for an increase in development potential by allowing higher residential density and greater commercial intensity. The Planning Commission reviewed the request and found the request consistent with a number of policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to the city planning strategy, development in urban villages. It was consistent with several of the neighborhoods policies and was consistent with the housing policies. Based on those considerations, the Planning Commission recommended that the proposed map amendment be found consistent with the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. I'm here to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here.
Yeah, could you go back earlier in your slides to the property itself, is it vacant?
Correct. The site's currently vacant.
Okay. You had some pictures of what was around it?
Sure.
Obviously, we all have a general sense of the area. I'm trying to get a little more specific sense of what the neighboring properties are. It looks like on the back side, on the 4th Avenue side, is that single family?
Okay, so this is looking at the subject site. The site is currently vacant. And then this is the adjacent property that's directly to the east of the subject site. This is a historic structure. And then
that had a notice up recently as well. Is something going on with that property? Are you coming up to talk about this, Mark? Sure. Okay. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions?
Anything else? Okay. Anyone in the public wish to speak on this item?
We've got the petition or
All
the.
right, Mr. Benton.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. My name is Mark Bentley, 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa 33602. I represent the owner and developer of the property, not developer, but the owner of the property, Nick Capitano Incorporated, and the Capitano family intends to develop this property for multifamily residential use. We've received positive recommendations from all staffs, also recommendation from Barrio Latino, Planning Commission. We received, John, the sign that you alluded to on the other building. That's going to be integrated into our project and rehabbed. And the sign on that property was for a certificate of appropriateness before the Barrio Latino Commission, which was approved last month, contingent upon receipt of the plan amendment. So if you have any specific questions, I'll gladly attempt to answer them.
What's the property to the west, Mark? That would be on Oliva.
I don't want to speak out of turn. Maybe Danny has I was just going off recollection, but there's no need to do that. But we're just north of the Corralwood Disco property, which is UMU 60, and the historic property contiguous and directly to the east is UMU 60, and I think to the north there's some UMU 60. So it's not out of character what we're proposing, and I can show you if we get into it. It's going to be a 4-story multifamily building with adequate parking on site.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Is this going to be rental or is it going to be?
It's going to be condos.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Fernandez, you're up.
Good evening, council members. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. This item did come before the Barrio Latino Commission on December 17th, and the BLC did voted to recommend approval as presented. One of the main factors was the historic structure that's on 19th Street is already zoned the UMU 60, and in order to sort of displaced the building entitlements on this. They felt that moving those entitlements to the vacant parcel for the new construction would further preserve this structure, which is going to be incorporated into the development.
Historically, what was that building?
It was a commercial use on the ground level and a boarding house on the second level.
I drive by it all the time, and I was like, that's an interesting building.
It's an interesting building, yeah. And it needs the rehabilitation.
Needs the love. Huh?
Yeah. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, how did the Barrio Latino, this four-story structure, is going to be below the 65-foot level that the Barrio usually looks at?
I believe it's at 62 feet.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak on item number 6?
Second.
We have a motion closed from Councilman Moreno with a second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Councilman Dingfelder, it's back to you.
Okay, it's item
6.
6. All right, in regard to item 6, PA 19-15, move the following ordinance for first reading, an ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan future land use element, future land use map for the property located in generally at 1806 East 3rd Avenue from general mixed use 24 GMU 24 to urban mixed use 60 UMU 60, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder with a second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
The motion carried with Vieira being absent. Second reading and adoption will be on February 20th at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Item number 7.
Good luck, man.
Good afternoon, Council. Michelle Ogilvie, representing Plan Hillsborough. This amendment is Plan Amendment 1913, which is a text amendment to the Tampa Comprehensive Plan and proposes new land use objective 2.3 and policy 2.31. The request is for the City of Tampa to encourage and support a health in all policies approach, I'm going to put on my glasses, based on the idea that health starts where people live, work, learn, and play, and that individual and community health is influenced by more than just the individual choices made. One's physical and psychological health, is also important to this development. The policy speaks to promoting health and wellness, which involves a variety of partners in the implementation, and I will be providing you details on that in just a minute. And then it goes on to speak to evidence-based measures of baseline and so on. The request is part of a summary work in which the Planning Commission, the MPO, and the Florida Department of Health, Hillsborough, all worked together since 2016 to develop this language. What we have learned in that time is that, thanks to the health department, is that what shapes our health is 50% health behaviors and 20% access to clinical care. 40% of it does have to do with policy, public policy on how we access education, employment, how we can work to have an income, what our family and social support systems are, community safety, and then 10% of physical environment, which includes our policies on things like air and water quality, housing, and transit. Access to education, jobs, services, and healthy foods are all part of our health outcome. The trend has been in the United States, according to the Center for Disease Control, that we have, as a nation, been getting a little heavier each decade. And that with this has accompanied chronic diseases such as diabetes 2, obesity, high blood pressure, cancer, and others. So there's the trend, and we have to do something about it as planners and public policy individuals. Health in all policies is a collaborative way of connecting and integrating health through things such as addressing how land use and transportation match, economic development supports, parks and recreation, how they are located and accessed, quality infrastructure, clean water, clean air, and these are called the social determinants of health. How does planning improve our health? It does that every day by encouraging and providing complete streets, planning for 0 fatalities for bicycle and pedestrians and automobile drivers, clean air to reduce asthma, with walking and biking activity being the go-to source of transportation and not the automobile. Planning a city form that encourages physical activity and provides access to healthy food, jobs, and education. The ingredients of health in all policies is active transportation, aging, addressing disabilities, which is to be inclusive of that form of human physical manifestation, safety and access to jobs, schools and where they're located, healthy food, and recreation. We have created, in the time that we have worked together, a baseline of data. It is called the Hillsborough County Health Atlas, and I apologize to those of you in the MPO who have seen these maps before. But anyway, such as the one on the screen, which speaks to chronic diseases, and this one is asthma. But we have been able to also track high blood pressure, cancer, obesity, and on and on. We also have in this atlas sidewalks and where they are, crashes, and where they have been located and concentrated, so that we have a complete picture of all the things that do create and provide a healthier city. The MPO, I'm sorry, not the MPO, the Planning Commission, on November 16th, 2019, supported a consistency finding in the Tampa Comprehensive Plan, which included a land use element, the neighborhood element, environmental and mobility elements that support giving people the choice for safe routes to residential neighborhood destinations, such as schools, parks, and promoting healthy and physical activity. And those are outlined in your report that you received. The recommendation of the Planning Commission is for the City Council to find the request consistent with the rest of the comprehensive plan, and to please forward this to the DCA for the DEO now, aren't they? For their review. That concludes my presentation.
All right, Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Michelle. So this is, it's sort of a feel-good thing. I think obviously it's important. We have nothing if we don't have our health. But it's kind of interesting. I was trying to see how, where the rubber meets the road in terms of, how this would impact us in making our decisions, land use and zoning decisions and that sort of thing. So on the second page of your report, for example, it speaks to land use policy 9.3.6. It says, we recognize that establishments licensed to sell alcoholic beverages may have potentially deleterious effects on neighborhoods. In order to partially remedy this situation, the city shall explore and, where appropriate, adopt methods that require petitioners requesting waivers of the minimum distance requirements related to the sale of the beverage to provide appropriate mitigation for any adverse impacts they may create upon surrounding uses. Well, I thought that was an interesting one. Had you given any thought of what that mitigation might be for the ABC or 7-Eleven or whatever, whoever's selling liquor too close to something else?
Well, I think in terms of the alcohol, it was, not to speak for the health department, but certainly one should be, if we are looking forward to health, and of course this is all with, when this comes back and does become part of the way we would look at, I had not even thought so much of the idea of, a wet zoning, because I don't think we even look at them. But in terms of the fact that are there concentrations, is there noise, which is a health issue, where is it that might be strengthening some of the city's standards. It's a conversation that's going on statewide, because the state did help fund part of this study, and also nationally. So it's a matter of, balancing, but of course you would also have some data too that may not be included today.
I recall when there was a period of time when in Ybor City, it was like week after week, month after month, there was another bar, another restaurant / bar, one after another on 7th Avenue. And finally I said, I'm going to quit voting for these, because because each one required a waiver because they were right next to the other one. But I said, why do we have to have that many bars and / wet zonings, and that tight to one another? And I'm glad that slowed down. But anyway, all right. Well, I just thought it was reading this is very interesting. I was just trying to figure out the practical impact of it on us, and our policy making.
It's a good question.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? All right, anybody in the public wish to speak on item number 7?
Good evening, Councilman. Thank you for another opportunity to speak with you. Good to see all of you once again. This is
I need your name for the record.
Oh, Lena Young Green. Don't need my address anymore, right? 3406 North Avon Avenue in Tampa. We embrace this opportunity to come and talk about this issue of health in all policies. Health overall, as we know, as a part of the community and community building, if we can't get health to be a key part of improving our community, we can't work on the other pieces. Working in the communities, we have been doing things relating to health for many years, even as simple as working with Councilman Gould with getting the children active in their sports, getting our streets cleaned up, getting our environment healthier. We worked on creating the green artery, which encouraged people to get out of their cars and walk and bike in the community. We talked about creating our community gardens. As you know, we have one of the most successful community gardens now. We have the Coalition of Community Gardens, which again connects to health. As many of you know, we lost my husband because he was one of those that had diabetes. And now we know that changes in environment, in lifestyles, do so much to improve diabetes. We have blood pressure and heart disease, which is very prevalent among people of color who look like us. We went to the Tallahassee and got the legislature to pass the bill in my husband's name to help law enforcement to be trained to recognize when a person has an illness as opposed to when they are drunk or have been drinking alcohol, because we know that that's one of the problems that happened with my husband. The officers not recognizing that he was ill and told him to calm down, and when he finally did, he was dead. And we've been working now with the Aetna Foundation and the Association of Public Health. We work with the Planning Commission and with the Health Department, the City of Tampa. We got the funding, again, Representative. Again, Councilman Gould worked with us in actually building our garden. So this is something that's very important that we look at. If we look at the comprehensive approach to health, then the underlying other things that we're working for is going to be so much easier to get resolved. We don't know how we work out the details, but just having that policy in place that health is important and we look at health as the beginning rather than accidentally or somewhere at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? Nope.
Second.
We have a motion closed from Councilmember Miranda with a second from Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Can we get a motion to transmit?
Motion to transmit.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Goods, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item number 8.
Good evening, council members. David Hay again with your Planning Commission staff. The next item for your review is this is a transmittal hearing for TA CPA 1916. A little background about the proposed amendment. This amendment is publicly initiated by Planning Commission staff in cooperation with City of Tampa staff. Proposed plan amendment seeks to establish a policy framework in the comprehensive plan dealing with properties designated as Transitional Use 24 or TU 24 for short. The TU 24 future land use category is a unique category as it allows for basically all development, residential, commercial, and light industrial uses. It was established to recognize the more eclectic areas of the city that were developed prior to the establishment of zoning and the comprehensive plan, and where there was no established trend at the time of the future land use designation. The category basically avoided creating a number of non-conforming uses. Previously adopted comprehensive plans had even categorized these areas as industrial, but those references were removed over the years. In 2018, your Planning Commission staff conducted a land use analysis of the TU 24 areas and found 7 unique areas in the city of Tampa. Most are located in East Tampa and Palmetto Beach. There's a small area down in South Tampa. Besides the South Tampa and Palmetto Beach areas, which are predominantly residential, most areas are light industrial and heavy commercial in character, including major auto repair and open storage. The proposed language, which is provided in your packet, seeks to prohibit future plan amendments to the TU 24 category. Since one of the objectives of the comprehensive plan is to provide direction for future development, the expansion of a category that allows almost all uses would not be appropriate. Proposed language also seeks to provide better direction at the rezoning stage to recognize existing residential uses in the TU 24. The proposed language also seeks to direct staff to work with existing property owners to recommend changes to a more appropriate future land use category, and if appropriate and the property owner approves, to initiate a plan amendment. This strategy recognizes the city's long-term goal of either reducing the prevalence of the TU 24 category or the eventual elimination of the category once all property has ever been changed. This strategy also protects individual property rights for parcels designated as TU 24, since any proposed plan amendment to a category other than TU 24 would need to be approved by the individual property owner. This did go to the reviewing agencies, and none had any concerns with the proposed request. The Planning Commission has reviewed the comprehensive plan and found that the proposed language adding policy guidance regarding the TU 24 future land use category is consistent with the adopted policy guidance within your comprehensive plan. Your Planning Commission found 3 main areas of consistency. The first are policies dealing with the discouragement of residential and industrial uses locating within proximity to each other. By reducing the prevalence of the TU 24 future land use category, we are reducing the chances for this to occur. The other two areas deal with the promotion of compatible development. Intensive uses such as open storage or heavy auto repair can have negative impacts on residential uses. It can also work the other way, where an established industrial use can be negatively impacted by newly developed residential uses. Finally, there is policy language dealing with the establishment of unique zoning districts for future land use category. The TU-24 does not further this policy since almost all development is permitted. The reduction in the prevalence of the TU-24 category would provide areas and property owners with better guidance on the overall development pattern preferred by the city. Based on that, your Planning Commission recommends the proposed text amendment be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, David. This is an interesting one. A concern that I think has been around for many years is that the city of Tampa, we used to have a lot of different areas with industrial, either heavy or light industrial. And then over the years, as property values increased or those industries went away, they're transitioning more into residential. Clearly, we see that south of Gandy, all over town, even Channel Side. Totally wiped out from industrial to residential, appropriately, I would say. So is that a concern of the Planning Commission? I mean, I'm a little concerned because I think at some point we're going to find ourselves with a totally residential city, and any services and that sort of thing, and or employers are going to be pushed further out. We might almost have reverse commuting to go out to our employment.
How the Planning Commission looks at it, currently we do not consider the TU-24 an industrial category. It's a mixed-use category, because right now it doesn't have to be an industrial use. It could just be a house, or someone could say, I'm gonna demolish a warehouse today, and they could be considered for a residential use.
Well, I'm just saying, historically, it appears to me, when I see these TU-24s come up, it seems like historically they've been industrial, but maybe leaning toward the residential.
I would say the majority of the areas are mostly heavy commercial. It's a lot of auto repair, open storage facilities, things like that. You do get pockets, especially in East Tampa, where there might be like just one or two neighborhood roadways with actual houses on them, and then they're right adjacent to an open storage use. And there has been previous cases that came before City Council where there were conflicting concerns regarding we're residential, but I'm an industrial use, and it was not a fun evening because there's really no guidance from the plan on what the preferred pattern is.
I'm looking at this, I guess, sort of with an economic development hat on a little bit, and I'm just wondering, does the Planning Commission look at those issues as well, in terms of, that we have I think we have a need to continue commercial uses sometimes, and or light industrial uses sometimes. But for example, down there south of Gandy, where we had some big industrial uses, and now they're all gone, and they're transitioning, into proposed multifamily. Again, going back to where the employers are or might be in the future.
Well, again, that currently is what what we're trying to establish is, first, the Planning Commission doesn't want this category to spread, basically because it does not allow any guidance on what could go there. So that was a concern, because we started having people ask at the Planning Commission, I have a land use category, and now I want to go to this TU-24 that allows everything. I would think everyone would want a category that allows everything, because then you don't have any real plan to look out. You can just go for the highest and best use based on what you decide for your property. That's concerning because it makes it more difficult to plan long-term the strategy for the city on employment and things like that. So none of this language removes any of property rights for people that have the TU-24 now. They can keep their industrial use. If they did decide that they wanted to go residential, they can do that. They could intensify their site. It allows it. We just don't want it to spread. Then the other part is that we can, and you've seen this recently, there was some state property that came through that was TU-24. There was an apartment down in South Tampa that was TU-24. It's been developed for years. And we worked with that applicant to say, you know, your use really is not reflected with your land use. And we would like to work with you to get to a more appropriate category to recognize what your long-range use for your property is. And that applicant worked with us, and that was one of the plan amendments down in South Tampa. So I don't want anyone to think that we're taking anything away from the people that have the TU-24 today.
Councilman Dingford.
Councilman Carlson.
Councilman Dingford, the issue you bring up is one that I also have concern about. I think it's separate from this, but I've talked to the Planning Commission about it, and I don't remember the exact number, but I think there's only like 300 acres of industrial land left in the city or something. There's a shrinking amount of industrial land. You and I can't talk about this outside this room, but I encourage you to talk to the Planning Commission, and I'll separately talk to them, and or maybe you could call for a workshop or something, and we can talk about this issue separately. I also have concern about Portland being converted to condos.
I believe there's only 3 areas in the city that allow a lot of.
We, David Hay, Planning Commission, we, through our analysis, we found 7 unique pods.
Right.
We called them really pods. One down in South Tampa, there's one on Palmetto Beach, and then most are kind of where Gary and east of Ybor and some north of Ybor.
And it was a large one south of University of South Florida.
Well, that is actually industrial.
Right.
Yeah, that's not the TU-24 category, but yeah.
You can build heavy stuff there.
Right.
Right.
All right, all right. Any other questions from council? No? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this item, item number 8?
Move to close.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Moreno with a second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Move to transmit.
We have a motion to transmit from Councilman Moreno. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mr. Crew, do you have to read it? No? No? All right. Mr. Hay, number 9.
David Hay again, Planning Commission staff. The next item is a transmittal for 1907E. This was originally part of that first packet of parks that you saw. We did have to continue it due to a legal issue. We think we've corrected all the legal issues regarding the legal description for the property. So again, it's 1907E. This is, again, this is part of that park amendment. It was continued. It did go to all our reviewing agencies, and none of them had any concerns. Since this is really the first time you're seeing this, this is Sulphur Springs Park, Hillsborough River, North Nebraska Avenue, the interstate. It's on the north side of the river. This is where the Sulphur Springs pool is. Here's some photos. This is looking east toward the intersection of North Nebraska and East Sitka. This is the property over here to the right. Here we've got the pool. Part of this pool is already rec open space. Here we are looking north up North Nebraska Avenue. Again, this is the property that's changing from commercial to rec open space. And now we're looking south down Nebraska Avenue. The Hillsborough River's behind these trees here. Again, this is the property in question. Currently, the subject site has 2 future land use categories. I believe this was the Sulphur Springs Arcade at one point, and that's why it had the commercial land use. on it. The rest of the park is already the rec open space. To the north is that urban mixed use 60, future land use category in that light purple. And then you've got some community mixed use 35 to the east, and then residential 20 and residential 10 to the south on the other side of the river. If this amendment is finally approved, the entire site would be rec open space. We're removing the potential for 25 dwelling units or a maximum of 64,000 square feet. And based on that, Planning Commission recommends that 1907E be found consistent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak on item number 9?
Second.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Miranda with a second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, may I have a motion?
Transmit.
to transmit?
Second.
We have a motion to transmit from Councilman Miranda with a second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we have items 10 through 16. Can these be bundled or no?
Yes, they can be all
Council's
bundled.
pleasure. If it's council's pleasure, these are all transmittal hearings, so Mr. Hay can make the presentations of 12 through 16 of what the parcels are. After each one, council can ask any questions. If not, he'll move to the next. And at the end of that, you can take public comment on items 10 through 16, close the public hearings, then move to transmit.
Anybody have any objection to that?
No objection.
Okay, David Hay, Planning Commission staff. Again, this is A through G, 1914. Again, these are all the sites: Waterworks, Site A; B, DeSoto; C, the Cypress Point, which is over here; D, Bobby Hicks, which is down in South Tampa; E, Gadsden; and then we have Reed and Rivercrest. Again, these are all part of that publicly initiated by Tampa City Council. Each park is listed on the City of Tampa's dedicated park list. All sites would go to the rec open space future land use category. Again, they all went to our reviewing agencies. None expressed any concern. Planning Commission did find all these consistent with providing open space opportunities. First one is Waterworks Park, Central Tampa Planning District, more specifically the Tampa Heights neighborhood. This is the subject site. I think we all know where Waterworks is, right? North of the interstate. Here's some pictures, Eulalie and looking toward the river. We've got the splash pad. This is looking south toward downtown with the band shell. Again, currently, right now, all this whole area, the Heights and all that, is that regional mixed use 100. That's that dark purple area. This would bring and recognize the park. Eulalie's is not part. It's up still in the regional mixed use 100. This would remove the potential for 371 units or 565,000 square feet. And all uses would need to be recreational. And Planning Commission found this consistent and is recommending approval.
Are there any questions from council members? Anybody in the public wish to speak on any of this? This essentially protects our city parks, so there's never any issue of development or anything else going on. So that's all.
We'll leave it open.
Move to transmit all of them.
No, actually, this is the first one. This is doing number 10.
10.
No, he did them all.
Did you do all of them? Or is this
No,
just
I
number
just
10?
did, that was just one. That was
Okay,
just
so
A.
then why don't we just keep going on?
I'll just keep going?
Yep.
Okay. Next one, Site B. This is DeSoto Park, Central Tampa Planning District, more specifically the Palmetto Beach neighborhood. Here's the subject site. This is Bermuda Boulevard. This is all Palmetto Beach. It's south of the crosstown. This is where that new warehouse is being developed. Here's just some photos looking in the park toward McKay Bay. Here we're looking west to DeSoto Elementary. Here we're looking southeast from the park over to 34th Street. You can see the warehouse under construction. And then these are some of the residential uses just to the north of the park on Quarry Street. All right, this site has two future land use categories, rec open space on the western half and then residential 35 on that eastern portion. This would bring the whole park under that rec open space. removing 224 units or 175,000 square feet of non-residential, and the Planning Commission did find that consistent. Keep going? Okay. Site C, Cypress Point Park. This is the entire subject site. It's way at the western end of West Cypress Boulevard. This is looking southeast from the main entrance into the park. Here we're looking southwest from the park toward Tampa Bay. The Howard Franklin's off behind those bushes there. Then you could see some of the development to the south in the West Shore Business District. This was one of the best field visits. Here we're at the beach. It's kind of hard to tell, but the majority of the site is already rec open space. There's just some minor areas, this area here, that entryway, and then there's some small areas there. But the vast majority of the park is already the rec open space. This would get the whole parcel under that rec open space. Since it's in that MAP district, it didn't have any residential potential, but it's removing the potential for up to 200,000 square feet. And the Planning Commission did find it consistent. Site D, Bobby Hicks Park. This is in the South Tampa Planning District, more specifically the Gandy Sun Bay South. Here we have the entire park. You can see it's mostly all single-family detached. This is the pool, the Bobby Hicks Pool. Here we have some photos of the subject site, the pavilion and the entrance sign. Here's some more pictures in the park. This is the portion that's changing. It's hard to see because it's behind a whole bunch of vegetation. It's this northern piece up here on the park. The southern part is already the rec open space where the pool is. It's just a small portion with a residential 10 up on Bay Avenue. Again, the entire park would go to the rec open space, removing 78 potential units or a maximum of 119,000 square feet. And Planning Commissions did recommend that it be found consistent.
Any questions?
Okay. Next, Site E, Gadsden Park. This is in the South Tampa Planning District, more specifically the Inner Bay neighborhood. This is the entire site. Of course, right to the south is MacDill Air Force Base. This is the flight path coming in. You could see the runway right over here. This is Dale Mabry going up. To the north is mostly single-family detached. And then there's some undeveloped federal lands to the west. Again, here's some photos of the park during our field visit. All right. The eastern portion of the park is already rec open space. The large retention pond in this western end has a Res 6 future land use category. That's that yellow. To the north is the residential 10, and of course the blue represents public and the MacDill Air Force Base. This would get the park, the entire park, under that rec open space future land use category. It would remove the potential for 209 units, or, yeah. And the Planning Commission recommends that the proposed map amendment be found consistent.
Thank you very much. Any questions? All right. We'll take public comment at the end. Okay.
Next is 1914, Site F. This is Reed Park. Kind of an odd shape here at the Hillsborough River. This is River Heights Avenue to the south. These roads dead end into the park. This house, which is actually used by a nonprofit, and they work with the Parks Department, is on site. And this is facing north, and then you can see the Hillsborough River. Currently, this brown color is the residential 20. There's some to the south, and then it gets more intensive to the south, the community mixed use 35 in that pink. And this is all Res 10. This would recognize the park and get it over to the rec open space future land use category. Removing the potential of 105 units or 114,000 square feet of non-residential, and the Planning Commission recommends approval of 1914F.
Do you know the history of Reed Park by any chance off the top of your head or no?
I don't,
Because
no.
I knew a doctor named Dr. Reed, and I think he may have donated it to the city. He passed away about 10 years ago, but
Jennifer Malone of our office worked on this one. She could probably answer that question, but so.
okay.
Next one is Site G, Rivercrest Park in the Central Tampa Planning District and in Seminole Heights Urban Village. Again, this is one of these parks right along the Hillsborough River. Here we're at the corner of East Osborne and North River Boulevard. You can see some of the trees in the park. This is the trail that runs through the park. And then looking toward the river and some of the houses across the way. Currently, the park has the two land use. It's split again, just like some other of these. The southern portion is residential 10, while this portion, the northeastern portion, is already the rec open space. This would get the park completely under the rec open space, removing the potential of 45 units or a maximum of 68,000 square feet, and recommend approval for that one as well.
So a fun fact about Rivercrest Park, there's a marker there, and it says Curtis Hickson Memorial Park.
Oh.
So we think of the Curtis Hickson Waterfront Park, but there's the original marker for like Friends of Curtis Hickson that's been there since the late 1950s.
Oh,
And of course,
wow.
he was mayor for 14 years here. So if
Oh,
you're ever
okay.
out there, it's there. Any
Great.
questions from
That's the
council?
one the North Boulevard runs into.
Yeah, the one that winds around. Yep. Any questions from council? All right. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak on any of these park items? You may come up now, and you have 3 minutes. State your name for the record, and you're free to speak.
And if I can, Mr. Chairman, for the purposes of the record, you're referring to items 10 through 16.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Hey, good evening, council members. Thank you for listening to me speak today. I'm Dr. Darren Spencer. I live down in the South Tampa area right by Gadsden Park. First off, thank you for identifying that those are residential 10 areas. In fact, the Gadsden Park site itself is where I spend a lot of my time. I'm retired Air Force myself, used to be a pilot, and at some point I decided to transition into being a high school teacher, which somehow I thought was going to be less stressful. I have learned it is not the case. And so every evening I take the time with my dogs, my wife, and we spend our time in that Res 10 area that you are looking at. And that is my stress relief for myself, fellow veterans, everything from World War II, Vietnam era, Korea, Iraq, all of the wars that we have in our history here. And so as a matter of fact, I've met most of my neighbors at Gadsden Park in that Res 10 area. So any effort to preserve that and to turn it into a open space for recreational use, I absolutely fully support, and I thank you and the council members for doing for us. In fact, anything that would help keep it exactly like it is, I would fully support, because I'm not the best when it comes to identifying critters, but there are two there I'm pretty darn sure are federally protected. I've seen bald eagles, osprey, you name it, and there are some state protected box turtles and other things that call that home. And that is part of my relaxation every evening when I come home, is to enjoy that and to kind of get away from a little bit of the hustle and bustle that the city is turning into with all the residential and other construction that's going on here. So in general, I've met a lot of my neighbors. It's my relaxed time, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to preserve some of these areas here in Tampa that keep it nice and relaxing. So thank you.
If I may ask him, what do you do as a teacher? Where at?
Jefferson High School, sir. I teach.
I just want to get the Jefferson High School in.
Yes, sir.
These guys here.
And I will say, Robinson's been bugging me to move over there. I just can't leave Jefferson.
You
While
can't do
you're
that to
dragging,
him.
you're always
You
a
gotta
drag.
stay.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely, sir.
All right. Well, this will ensure that the park is protected in that 73 acres. I wonder if it's Tampa's largest park, because it's certainly bigger than the ones here downtown. 73 acres is substantial.
It's rather large, and it really should be the template for everything else that we have here, because it really does, as that
lady was saying before, help our health.
Yep.
It's spot on.
There you go. Any other council members have any comments? Moran?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I know there's a lot, instead of asking just to transmit, someone just call 10 and the number 11, go down so the record is clear.
Okay.
If you wish, but.
Yeah, if I may do that, I just want a clear record of all this. If I may, Mr. Chairman, move for transmit item.
If we could do the motions to close.
Wait.
Motion closed.
Councilman Carlson, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, let me just make a short comment. I tried to thank everybody involved with this before, and we mentioned Councilman Suarez in particular and all the other council people who pushed this before. But one that came up to me also when I stepped out was Mary Mulhern apparently also was very involved in this. So anyway, thank you to everybody. Sorry if I missed any names, but thank you to everybody who suggested this because it's a great idea that we're protecting our parks.
If I may clear that you're right, the Park Council has done it, not notified accurately, and the other council, the last council, are in the code.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I believe somebody indicated there may be additional public comments. I
Sure.
apologize.
Come on up, 3 minutes, and state your name for the record.
Thanks. Name's Ryan Robideau. I don't have a statement necessarily, more of a question, because this is kind of foreign to me. So with the open rec space, I guess what does that protect us from, like for instance, Gadsden Park, besides residential, commercial, I guess what type of
You won't have a developer come in and ask to build anything, but
Yeah.
if the city chooses to build a recreation center or playground or anything like that, it's
Yeah.
limited to that. It can't go to someone building an apartment or some kind of housing or commercial retail. Or it stays a green space, with the exception of if a future mayor says, you know, I'm going to take Gadsden Park and build a new playground. It would be
Okay.
something like that. But beyond that, it's limited to that open recreation space.
Okay.
Yeah, and the parks, I believe, I don't know the statute, I mean, the ordinance in front of me, but the parks are also, many of our parks are also protected by ordinance too. I think if Kate can help me out, but if they were to be converted over, I think it has to be a referendum or something, right?
Many of these parks were already on the dedicated park list and codified in our code of ordinances. And what we're doing today is like a belt and suspenders approach to protecting it to ensure that the future land use designation is consistent with that dedication.
But if it's on the dedicated list, does it have to be a referendum to change?
Boy, you're really
No.
testing me, Councilman
No,
Dingfelder.
the answer to that is the previous council discovered the answer to that question was no.
Yeah.
It could just be changed by ordinance, as a regular ordinance can
Okay.
be changed.
All right,
So
well,
basically what this does is this adds an extra layer of involvement of the community and particularly the city council relative to anything that would require and now an additional step of a change to the future land use. It's an additional protection provided by this consistent.
try to add as many
Follow-up
layers
now.
of protection as possible.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful. I do have a follow-up though. So the word around the neighborhood is that I guess the Tampa Water Ski Club has approached somebody to practice there on a regular basis or have their events there. So is something like that a potential use even for that designation?
Not knowing the specifics, I don't want to speculate. What I would recommend is that you reach out to Park Dial. He is the director of the Parks Department and have that conversation.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else from the public wish to speak? May I have a motion to close?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Gooch. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Councilman Miranda, would you like
Thank
to?
you, Mr. Chairman. I move for transmittal of the following. Number 10, PA 19-14A. Number 11, PA 19-14B. Number 12, PA 19-14C. To transmit 13, PA 19-14D. 14, PA 19-14E. 15, PA 19-14F. And PA 19-14G. Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Miranda for items 10 through 16 with a second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right.
17?
We have items 17 and 18, a continuation of our public hearings. Is there going to be a continuance or anything with either one of those? Or no?
Yes.
Good evening, Council. LaShawn Dot, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Council, item number 18, staff is requesting that that is removed from the agenda. The applicant will submit revised plans, and it will require a new public notice.
We have a
and
motion to
scheduling.
remove from Councilman Dingfelder with a second from Councilman Goods for item number 18, REZ 1962. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Did we swear in the, anybody speaking, Mr. Crew? So
We did not.
Oh, may I get a motion to open the 6 p.m. public hearing? All right, we have a motion from Councilman Rand, a second from Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. So if you're gonna speak, please stand and they'll swear you in.
You swear affirm you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Good evening again, Council. LaShawn Dock, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Our item on the agenda, our one and only item on the agenda this evening is AB 2-1925. This is for the property located at 4813 and 4815 North Grady Avenue. The applicant is Craig Taransky, and the property is currently zoned Industrial General, IG. The request before you is for a small venue for beer and wine consumption on premise only. The request is the proposed use for bar and indoor and outdoor commercial recreational facility use. The total AB sales area requested is 5,592 square feet. That will include 5,000 square feet of indoor area and 592 square feet of outdoor area. There are 50 parking spaces required by code and 50 spaces are provided. And the site plan does note that the site will be consistent with the sales. The sales for AB sales hours are consistent with Chapter 14. I have the site plan here. So this is the property that's located on Grady Avenue. And the request I have highlighted on the site plan, the area that is in orange is the outdoor sales area proposed. The area that's outlined in blue, in the black outline dot rather, that is the indoor sales area. This is the outdoor area that is outlined. The red line is the property boundary, and the arrows show the proposed traffic for travel. So the site itself, just to orient you, on Grady, it's on the east side of Grady Avenue. North of this site is Hillsborough Avenue. South of the site is MLK. Del Mabry is located along the eastern side. So this is the site here that's dotted in red. So it has one building that's located here, and this is the vacant land, so this is the location for that dog park area, and the parking will be located along the west of the site. And I have pictures of the site. Let me zoom a little. Just to show a little better. So this is the site on Grady. That's the side of the site that contains the building. And that's another view of the site. That's the northern part of the site, which is where that outdoor area would be located. This is the property to the north. That's a view of the property to the south. And that's to the west. That is across Grady Avenue. On page 2 of the staff report, you'll find the staff findings from Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. There were 2 waivers requested. One was to reduce the required distance separation for residential from 1,000 feet to 2 feet. And another waiver for to reduce the AB sales establishments from 1,000 feet to 705 feet. There are minor corrections to the site plan that are required between first and second reading, and those are listed within the staff report. And the Development Review and Compliance staff reviewed the application, finds it inconsistent with applicable City of Tampa land development regulations. And there are minor revisions, as I mentioned, that are required between first and second reading. TPD also reviewed the request, and TPD has no objections to the request. And that is also found within the staff report for council.
Are there any questions? No? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next Next up, the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Craig Taraski. I'm an attorney with Johnson Pope, representing the applicant, Two Shepherds Taproom LLC. As you heard, we're proposing a bar use, a beer and wine consumption on premises only. Let's see here. Just to, actually, I don't need that in there. I'll give you just a better perspective of the property. You did see some photos. This is a photo looking west from the property. There's a industrial property with open outdoor storage to the west. It's a picture of the subject property. The plan is an adaptive reuse of the existing building. So you can see we have essentially an unpaved or a pavement that's in decay. We have no trees on the interior of the site. We have some chain link fencing to the west. We have some board-on-board fencing to the south. With respect to the waiver from residential uses, this is the residential use immediately to the south. It's a non-conforming multifamily property. Appears to be some sort of short-term rental type operation. There's another view from the street showing the unenclosed dumpster and the non-conforming sign.
What direction is the residential from you?
Immediately south. This is across from the residential property. We have a lumber yard with outdoor storage. And this is immediately to the west of the site, across the street, across Grady. We have a mix of some non-conforming residential properties mixed in with some outdoor storage yards, some other storage. We have some commercial vehicles parked there as well. So the Drew Park, if you've been out there, it's a kind of a mix of uses. You have everything from residential to intense industrial. What we're asking for here is, we feel, is consistent as being a bar use with the surroundings. There are certainly more intensive uses in the immediately surrounding area. This entertained me. The applicant's responsibility is to meet the general standards of section 27-129 of the code. I'll just go through those as quickly as I possibly can. Put the site plan up to provide you some visuals for some of these things. Ingress and egress, we've addressed. We've got a new parking lot with circulation through the site. We have a trash dumpster that's enclosed for easy access for unloading. We've got dedicated loading space. We've got lighting will be per code. Utilities, there's no issue with public utility service in the Drew Park area. This will meet the current drainage standards. Control of adverse effects. As we mentioned, the waiver from adjacent residential use, we have that multifamily property immediately to the south. The activity of this use is faced to the north, away from that residential use, and utilizes the existing structure as a buffer of that use. The majority, again, 5,000 square feet of AB area inside building, 590 and change square feet of outdoor service area on the north side of the building, again, away from the residential use. This outdoor active rec dog park, again, away from the existing residential use. We have the few residential properties on this side. The nice thing about this site is the active areas are pushed far back in the property as possible to maximize that separation from the other residential uses on to the west. I do have the design engineer and the applicant here. If you have any specific questions about the operation of this bar, they will not have a kitchen, so there'll be no food service. We don't have to worry about fumes from any type of kitchen operation interfering with the adjacent residential use. We're not going to have any amplified outdoor music. If you have any other specific questions, we'd be happy to address them.
Councilman Dingsfeld.
You read my mind. I don't see anything on on the site plan that limits you from having, the exterior music?
Would you be agreeable to adding a stipulation on the site plan that there'll be no amplified music to the exterior? We can add that prior to next reading.
Okay, Mr. Shelby, what's the appropriate language?
I would believe it's no outdoor amplified sound is the way it's addressed on the site plan, generally.
Okay, and then, I recognize what you're saying about Drew Park, but those folks are citizens also and deserve the dignity of, that everybody else does. I also don't see anything here about any limitation of hours. What's your proposed operation for hours?
The proposal is to meet code, so that's correct me, but I think it's a 2 or 3,
yeah,
depending on day of the week.
I mean, is that what you desire? Is that the operational plan? Is to stay open till 2, 3 in the morning, 7 days a week?
No, it's not, no. Our latest operating hours will be 11 p.m.
So why don't we have the site plan match what your plan, your business plan is?
11. I am Ross O'Brien, the applicant. Our latest operating hours will be 11 p.m. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 11 p.m. Sunday, we plan to be open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then Monday through Wednesday, we plan to be open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay. For site plan purposes, I'd be comfortable with, a limitation of, 10 or 11. And I can't speak for these guys, but personally, I'd be comfortable with that. But, you see what I'm saying? The code allows for 2 in the morning, but, folks have to go to sleep too, so. Anyway, whatever you might propose along those lines, 10 on weekdays and 11 on the weekends.
Is that agreeable? 10, 11?
11 on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
I'm comfortable with that.
All right, sorry, not Sunday. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
What is it again?
Hours again?
So our hours are on Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, may I inquire?
Yes, sir.
Now, the hours that you will want or agree to address the adverse impacts as expressed by City Council, what are the hours you want on your site plan to be?
Those that I just mentioned would
just
be,
those that you
yes,
mentioned?
that I just mentioned, yes, those would be preferable.
So the latest they would be open would be 11 p.m. Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Correct.
So it's within reason.
Okay, so you can put that on the site plan between first and second.
And no amplified sound, correct?
And do you agree to the no outdoor amplified sound?
Correct, yes, we agree.
My other 2 questions, lighting, does the site plan address lighting in terms of, is it downward lighting, or are you gonna have lighting that might overflow into the adjacent property?
It should address it, yes, it's downward facing. There are some in the parking lot to light up the parking lot, and then on the east and north side of the building to light up the front of the building and the north side of the building, the west side. Yeah, west and north. That will all be downward facing.
All right, Ms. Doc, if you could confirm that's on the site plan somewhere. And then finally, fencing.
Yes.
You've got parking spots that go directly to the south toward those residential. What do you have to buffer or mitigate the?
We do have a plan to have fencing along the entire southern border.
What type?
It depends on what our contractor is able to do within our budget, but we do have plans to keep it visually obscured.
It won't be chain link. Right. It'll be something completely visually obscured, so it blocks that area.
Sorry, the clerk I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman and Councilman Dingfelder, but the clerk is asking that when you speak and you go back and forth for the purposes of the record, they just ask that you state your name.
Oh,
thank you.
Apologies.
Okay.
You don't have their names at all, is what you're saying.
The
two gentlemen who stood up. Okay, here we go.
Forgive us, it's our first time. My name is Patrick Verdugo.
And my name is Ross O'Brien.
Thank you.
So anyway, I don't think it's necessary to have a concrete wall or anything like that, but at least an opaque fence. PVC or, cypress or.
That's our plan as of now, that we would like to obscure that image.
So-
Patrick Verdugo.
So you can put that on the site plan as well voluntarily?
Yes, Ross is right, yes, it should, if it's not already, it should be on there, yes.
There's, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a board-on-board fence currently on that side of the property.
There's a Patrick Verdugo, there's a chain link fence currently on the southern border as well as the eastern border. There's no fence on the northern border as of now. We do plan to have a fence on the eastern and southern borders between the industrial use to our east and the residential use to our south.
Okay, so you'll include that on the site plan, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, so we'll add that to the site plan where it would shield the residential structures.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council members? Thank you very much. You have a.
Thank you.
Council LaShawn Dock, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. I just want to just make a couple of points for clarification. So the code will allow hours till 3 a.m. So the applicant has agreed to these hours that they have stated on the record to close, which that revision would be made between first and second reading. I want to make sure that the applicant understands the no outdoor amplified sound when they put that requirement on the plan. That means no, you can't have speakers outside that emit music, any sound outdoors. So I just want to make sure that that is on the record and that is clear. Any changes to any of these requirements that the applicant has agreed to make will require them to come back before council for a new request.
Okay. Did you understand
A new
what she said?
special use 2 request.
And we also had, LaShawn, we also had the lighting that they were gonna add.
Correct. So they have the hours that they're adding, the lighting directed away from the residential, the fencing to the south is what they're going to add in addition to the changes in the staff report.
Opaque.
And the opaque fencing.
Sir, did you understand everything that she had said?
I just wanted to, Patrick Verdugo, I just wanted to get a clarification. So you did say music. There's a difference between amplified music and just maybe acoustic music or anything that's not amplified. I just want to be very clear the difference between amplified and non-amplified.
Will you have live music, like someone playing guitar, or will you have
Potentially live music, but all acoustic, nothing with any amplifiers or speakers of any kind is what, in my mind and my business partner's mind, would be the course of action.
And would that be in violation, or is it strictly to speakers and amplified, whereas someone playing a guitar on a stool would be okay?
Council LaShawn Dock, it does state, the code does state outdoor amplified sound. It is up to council and the applicant and what they agree upon if they want to add this condition, if they know that they're going to have a band outside. I don't know, it just may, for clarity, they may not want to put the note that they would not have outdoor amplified sound. But it's certainly up to council and what the applicant agrees to do, especially if the applicant knows they're going to have outdoor entertainment.
Councilman Goods.
That's amplified sound. Guitars are not. Music is noise is noise, so it amplifies. So, you can have drums.
If I may, I am a musician, Patrick Verdugo. I am a musician. I play multiple instruments, guitar being one of them. You use an amplifier to amplify your electric guitar. You do not use any amplifier for an acoustic guitar. So my argument would be, if we can have music that is unamplified acoustic guitar, nothing with speakers or any amplifiers, that would be, I think, a fair request on our end.
As well, sorry, Ross or Ryan, as well, I believe the code does define, potentially, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it may define amplified sound, and amplified is defined as with speakers.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, you're right. Any objections, any questions, any comments from council?
So we're gonna rename it Drew Park Unplugged.
I love it.
Perfect.
That works. That works. All right. Great. Thank you very much. Anything else?
I'm sorry, LaShawn Dock, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. So what was the final? Is the applicant going to put the note on the site plan or not?
I think they said they would be okay.
Yeah, because there would be no amplification if it's an acoustic instrument. There's no.
Okay, so we'll have that for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? You have 3 minutes if you'd like to approach the lectern. We have a motion to close from Councilman Miranda with a second from Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor?
Aye.
And who would like to take this? Councilman Miranda.
Chairman, item number 17, file number AB 19-25, moving an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance approving special use permit S2 for alcohol beverage sales, small venue consumption on premise only, and making lawful the sale of beer and wine at or from the certain lot, plot, or tract of land located 4813, 4815 North Grady Avenue, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in Section 2, providing that all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, providing an effective date.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Miranda,
As the applicant with all the amendments that were added between first and second reading regarding fencing, sound, and hours of operation. And the dogs don't drink much, do they?
and lighting.
Don't think so. And lighting.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Miranda with a second from Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The motion carried with Vieira being absent. Second reading and adoption will be on February 20th at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much. All right, we will go to information reports and new business by council members. Councilman Carlson.
I would like to make it's the League of Women Voters 100th anniversary, and they asked for a accommodation. So I'd like to make a motion for accommodation to be presented at the Hillsborough County League of Women Voters at their annual luncheon Friday, February 14th, 2020, as they celebrate the 100th anniversary of the League of Women Voters.
We have a motion from Councilman Carlson with a second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else, sir?
Nope, thank you.
Councilman Miranda?
None, sir.
Councilman Citro?
Nothing tonight.
Councilman Goode? Councilman Dingfelder?
Yes, I wanted to, I don't know if anybody's done this yet, but I wanted to give a shout out to one of our newest assistant city attorneys, Susan Johnson-Velez. Susan and I worked together over at the county attorney's office. She's a great land use and attorney and many other skills, I'm sure, and welcome aboard.
Listen,
Snooze, you lose.
Mr. Good, never ruin a man when he's doing such a wonderful thing.
Thanks,
and he
dude.
wasn't cognizant of the
Thanks,
fact that
dude.
we already done it. But anyway, Mr. Maniscalco.
Yes, sir. I have, I brought up the letter here for the special call council workshops from Chief of Staff John Bennett. I'd like to move that we place this on the agenda as the last item under staff reports at next Thursday's regular meeting.
Second.
To make a
Motion by
decision.
Mr. Maniscalco, second
Yes.
by
To
Mr.
make a decision.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If I can, counsel, of course, also Chairman Vieira will be back, and also the Chief of Staff would ask that council do take action next week, so if you could look at the calendars and be prepared to take action on that item.
Motion by Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Citro. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have unanimously.
All right. Move to receive and file.
Second. No, go on, second.
Second.
Have a motion to receive and file, have a second. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have unanimously.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, I can run.